Okay, let's take a look at the first topic for discussion, where taking a look at the raid on Justice Mary Odili's house. 14 persons have been arrested in connection with the siege on the judge apartment in Abuja, the police said on Thursday. Some of the suspects include a fake superintendent of police, Lawrence Ajodo, a contributing editor with one of the national dailies, Stanley Wazima, and an Islamic scholar. The first public relations officer, Frank Kumba, paraded the suspect in Abuja and explained that the arrest followed a swift investigation by the police. At least 10 more persons linked with the incident, including 2 military personnel and at large, the police spokesman has said. Earlier, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister for Justice, Abubakar Malami, has distanced himself from one of the suspects arrested over the siege. The suspect, Lawrence Ajodo, was paraded by the police alongside 13 others. He claimed to work as a consultant for the office of the AGF. Now, there are a lot of allegations and counter-allegations as far as this raid is concerned. So many twists, so many turns, we don't even know where to believe. So I guess I should just start with what do you think about this issue?
Well, it's quite surprising to see that in an eviction that was carried out on the house of, Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, we're having this kind of discussion as to how it happened, who was responsible. There are two things that worries me in this whole drama. That is first, the chief magistrate that issued the search warrant on basis of which this strange search was carried out. You see, today I'm quite worried about the quality of members of the judiciary. Because if you look at the facts, from what I've seen online, the facts on the basis of which that search was issued, it was not sufficient to issue a search warrant. Because you see, by law, before you can issue a search warrant, there has to be the police or the security agencies asking for it. They have to demonstrate that there is a reasonable basis for carrying out a search. You look at the affidavit that was brought before the magistrate. It simply says, "Oh, I'm aware that there's an illegal activity going on in that house." What does that even mean? Those are very vague statements. And then there's a police officer now who we are now being told is a fake officer. And that was the officer that the search warrant was issued to by the magistrate. So are you telling me that the magistrate will issue a search warrant without demanding to see, that the officer, So that is really the problem for me. And the fact that the chief magistrate is a major part of the judiciary, and is party to this assault. I'm not saying party in the sense of knowingly doing it, but failing to do your job is the reason why we have gotten to this point.
And a fellow judge for that
exactly.
matter.
So you should. Well, I can understand that the judge may not have known that the person who was occupied that apartment. But these are questions you should ask. Sometimes you're in court, you go to court before these magistrates, and you want to insist on certain issues of law, and they're fighting with you. It just tells on the quality of the people we're having in the judiciary, particularly at the magistrate court level. Another thing, then, you also talk about the connection of the Attorney General. This is the law officer and senior advocate of Nigeria, somebody who should be protecting the rule of law. And we heard that one of the so-called consultants in this whole process, claimed he used to work for him as a consultant. So you see, all of this just tells me that at the end of the day, I don't even blame politicians now.
And
I actually blame.
There's something not quite right with
the
whole process.
So I'm really worried about the judicial officers, the Attorney General's office, the chief magistrate who issued this search warrant that has led us here, and then the whole fact that it is possible for some fake people to come up with an application and then they'll get an order of court to go carry a search on the house of the chief of the Justice of the Supreme Court. It's just, it's bad enough that we are already there's insecurity, we can't hide anywhere. It is not so bad that you can go to court and get this kind of orders and warrants.
This is not the first time this is happening, but this is the first time, Barrister Zwana. This is the first time it's happening in a very long time. What does this tell you about the safety of judicial officers?
You see, this matter worries me so much, and I want to look at it from the security angle. If this can happen to a Justice of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, That shows you that nobody is safe in this country. And I can't imagine this type of situation arising in a place like the United States or in the United Kingdom. You see, it's very embarrassing. It's unacceptable. And what happened to Justice Odili, my lord, is derogating seriously from the democratic reputation of this government. That such a thing can happen to a justice of the Supreme Court. It's embarrassing. And we say that we run a democratic government in this country.
I mean,
but for the courage.
And these are some of the things we say associated with military rule.
You see happening now in the, that's why I say it is derogating from the democratic reputation of this government. Even during the military regime, we didn't have this type of situation where you just can send anybody to a justice's house. You see, the past example of this, what happened to Odili, happened during this very regime in 2016, when some judges, John Inyagokoro, my callmate, were called to bar at the same time, and Ngota, who is now late, may so rest in peace, and other judges in even in states, even in a place like River State. If any judicial officer has breached the law, the procedures are there as to how to deal with them, than sending armed men in the little hours of the night to go and arrest them, to embarrass them. It should not happen in the democracy. But it's happening in Nigeria, and we say we're a democratic nation. That's why it is embarrassing and is taking away a lot of things from the democratic reputation of they can't run away from it, of this country. So it's unacceptable. And there are allegations even in certain quarters that operation was to be an assassination. The governor of Rivers State did say it. He said they wanted to assassinate her. I can't understand. I just don't know how to describe it. It's unacceptable. And fingers are pointing to the AGF. I'm happy now that the police say they have arrested some people, but the evidence so far is not convincing in the opinion of many of us. So let them do the proper investigation. And I'm happy also that the NBA, headed by Lumide Akpata, is also taking steps to see that this matter is properly investigated. So let us hope that the investigation will come out with the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Now, we've talked about this several times, you know, on this platform, where there seems to be, how do I put it now, an hierarchical, you know, background when it comes to judiciary. We know the place of the executive and the legislatures, and they're quite loud and pronounced as far as our democratic setting is concerned. But when it comes to the judiciary, there seems to be tattered on the garment, as it were, of the executive and the legislature. We've talked about autonomy, you know, on judicial autonomy several times here. Will this help eliminating issues like this?
Well, I think it's important for us to, you know, use this opportunity to focus on the fact that the judiciary has become the whipping arm of government. Judiciary is supposed to occupy the same status as, you know, the executive arm, the legislative arm. But unfortunately, over the years, politicians have muzzled up the judiciary. Of course, you know why that is so, because, you know, they want to get decisions in their favor, they want to influence the judiciary. Some of these arrests you are seeing, even the one that happened in 2016, and even this one now, is obviously an attempt to threaten, you know, give an indirect threat to the judiciary. Sometimes as lawyers today, you go to court with applications that honorary should be granted, but because against the government agency or some security agency, the judiciary, they are afraid. And that is really bad for democracy and the rule of law, because, you know, it's very difficult to get justice in this country when you are running against state government, the federal government, the government institutions, because the judge is not feeling safe. That, you know, who knows, they might Imagine if my Lord Justice Odili was successfully invaded and something happened. Maybe, God forbid, something happened. These guys will deny and say they don't know anything about it. And that is affecting the justice, administration of justice in this country. And so we need to emphasize, and I agree with you, we need to emphasize the issue of autonomy for the judiciary, so that the judiciary can be independent. Because this idea of being tied to the executive is really one of the biggest problems we have. You have a situation where, without the governor buying vehicles for judges, they cannot move around with good vehicles. Our courts are dilapidated. We cannot get infrastructure without the executive. But meanwhile, we have special budgets for the National Assembly. And then they spend it by themselves. Why can't we do that? And the Constitution, to a very large extent, guarantees this. But political expediency, Nigerian political expediency, has made the judiciary so subservient, so almost like a slave in the scheme of things, and that is really a problem. So whilst we are trying to investigate and unravel the circumstances surrounding this rather strange search, I think it's important for us to also talk about the need to have an independent judiciary, and that can dispense justice. Because as it stands now, I can tell you for free that some of my clients and other colleagues in the system, they don't feel that they're going to get justice. And so people are resorting to all sorts, resorting to the police, and all of that, because they don't believe they can get justice against government, because there's no independence. So independent judiciary is something that we need to really work on.
So what else can be done to stop this kind of issue, harassment of the judiciary?
I think one of the ways by which this health situation can be tackled is to grant full financial independence to the judiciary. That is one. And secondly, to make the judiciary feel that they are equal to the two arms of government, the other two arms of government, like the executive.
Because constitutionally they are equal.
Yes, that is just in theory, but in practice, when they don't have the resources, they don't have the coercive powers of the state like the executive will do. How do you think they are really equal in fact? They are not equal in fact, but maybe in theory they might be equal. So we'll start by granting them full, that judiciary, by granting the judiciary full financial independence, so that they don't go cap in hand begging at the doorsteps of the executive. I think that will make them feel really that they are independent. But as things are now, they are being intimidated, because these amounts, what happened to Odili is intimidatory of the whole judiciary as a whole. Yes.
So let's take a look at something that I don't know how practicable it is. Talking about security now, is there no way security can be attached to the judiciary, like certain arm of the security be attached to the judiciary, in terms of, like, we've seen a situation where a judge have issued an order, and as it were, as you just said, now the order is against the government, and of course we know that the executives control the police and the army and stuff like that. Now, in a situation where like, let's say for example, when order was given for the release of El Zakzaki, and of course the government several times refused to release them. We're in a situation where if the judge has like a security arm attached to it, the security, their duty will be for them to carry out order that has been carried out, that has been given by the judge, without any interference from the executive.
Well, I don't see how that's going to be practicable. I don't think that is even done anywhere in the world. I think what is the problem we are having is this idea that the judiciary has been muscled. There are so many coercive, there's a lot of power that the judiciary has to deal with people, even government officials who are refusing to obey orders. But like you said, the challenge is that because the judiciary in the country has been muzzled up and there's no independence, they are not able to really assert themselves. I think that's really the key thing, because once you know that the governor is going to call you, some powerful people within the country, and then even the way you were appointed in the first place, you have to look at the way judges are appointed. It's political. It's based on politics, and people bring different. In a particular state, I want to mention the state. A recruitment was done, and there were so many people who were qualified, and they did well in the exam. None of them was contacted. They just brought in strange people. People who were connected to some politician, people who were connected to some governors, people whose parents were once judges and all of that. So the thing is not really about the judiciary having a security arm that enforces the law. That will create a lot of complications in the system. We already have, but we need to have a system that's automatic in such a way that the moment an order of court is issued, it is enforced. And the judiciary can assert themselves through some coercive powers that they have, but they're not able to do so now because they're afraid. They're afraid, and they don't even have the means in terms of financial muscle to carry out certain things that are required, in order to enforce orders and all that. So that's really, I don't see how we're going to really have a security arm attached to the judiciary. But typically, they're supposed to be, in every court, for example, you have police and security agencies there. So that if, for example, the court, you are cited for contempt, you have to be, which is one of the powers that the court has, to really deal with people who disregard the authority and parts of the court, like most government officers are doing now. You can be cited for contempt, you can be sent to jail. There are supposed to be police officers around who would carry out that order automatically. And that is what is supposed to be obtainable, and that's what is obtainable everywhere else. But the challenge we have is that because the judiciary is now more like, in quotes, a slave to the other arms of government, you have the executive using their powers to prevent such enforcement. So I think we just need to have a system that works, system that understands the essence of the rule of law. Because the effect of your trying to muscle up judges, really, it destroys your economy. Because how many people want to come and invest in Nigeria when they're not sure that they will get just judgment or justice, when they know that judiciary will be pocketed, and it has a lot of multiplier effect on the system. So we need to have a system that works in the sense that judgments of court, orders of court are automatically executed by the arm of government that should do that, which is the security agencies, attached to the court or upon an information given to them. But to say you want to have create a special security outfit for the judiciary, I really don't see how that's going to work.
Yes, Mr. Solomon, you see, the idea you just floated now is never done anywhere. The problem,
I
know you have a right to think the way you are thinking.
We all know Nigeria is a very special country.
I know you have just made that suggestion out of desperation and out of disappointment. It's not done anywhere in the world. The problem we are having in this country today is the type of government we are operating. The present government we are operating does not believe in the rule of law in stricto sensu, in the strict sense of it. It's a government that believes in choosing and selecting which judgment should be obeyed. And it's not done so anywhere in the world. So I think I would better put it this way, that we are politically not matured yet to run a proper democracy. Because in a proper democracy, these three organs of government are independent, they perform their duties, and nobody challenges anybody, and the orders are obeyed. If the judiciary gives a judgment or whatever, nobody will question it. But here in Nigeria, due to the system we operate in, certain judgment is given, they begin to look at it. Do we obey this? Do we accept this? Or do we reject it? Which is wrong. The judiciary is the final arbiter in any dispute between government and governments. Governments are citizen against citizen, and there should be no problem. But we are yet to get to that level where we just respect
but
the decisions.
How long does it take?
There's maturity, and don't forget that the present government we have is headed by an ex-military man. that blood is still there. Yeah, that blood is still there. We are not fully, how do I put it? We are not operating a full democratic system of government.
So,
so
what does it take? What does it take for the judiciary rather, to get their full autonomy, their full independence, as it were? Where does the bulk lie, or where does it stop? Because from what I'm getting, it's the governors that are holding it. The president has, I mean,
you see,
how does it work?
It's a very funny situation. I remember during the military regime, there used to be a judge in Lagos State here, Justice Jinaidu. I think he's still alive or died recently. He gave a judgment. That was during Babangida's regime. And the government refused to comply with that judgment. The man resigned. Justice Jinaidu. Yes, Lagos man. But how many judges will have that type of courage? And where do we end? Where do we go from there? Every time a judge gives a judgment against government, the government refuses to comply with that judgment. If every judge begins to resign, where do we end? Where do we go from there? But we had a judge who did it. Jinaidu, here in Lagos. It was in the 80s, 1980 something. I was just less than 10 years at about that time. He made history. I think Gani wrote a book on him for his courage. But not everybody, not every judge. Okay, if it is in the appellate court, like Court of Appeal, 3 judges or 5 judges give a judgment against government. They refuse. Do you think the 3 will like to, 1 or 2 might like to resign? The other uncle, the Supreme Court, where you have 5. Do you think how many will begin to, where do we end the judges resigning? Or, you know. So we have and that problem is that we should operate a proper democratic, we should learn to obey the law. We don't obey the law in this country. So that's the problem. Which for now, I can't see a straightforward solution to that.
Just to add that everything comes down to the issue of our democratic process. Who is elected? Does the votes of Nigerians count in the process? That's really what this comes to. If those who are elected to represent the people know for a fact that when they don't do the right things, they will be voted out, the chances are that they will be listening to the people. The popular opinion out there is that we need to have independence of the judiciary. We need to ensure that there is rule of law and all of that. But these people are not, really paying much attention, because they know that in the next election they can still win with or without the people. See, that is the heart of the whole thing. Until we have a process where the person you call your governor, the person you call your local government chairman or president, actually gets the direct consent of the people, the majority, then you're not going to solve the